I remember the moment I first downloaded ChatGPT. Do you remember that? It was like nothing I'd ever seen before, and I was overcome with possibility. I thought I could do anything with this, man. But today, it's been a few years later, and now I'm wondering, can large language models really do anything? And is generative AI the best solution for every problem? So my guest today, I think, has an answer to that question. We're going to find out. Choon Lee has been working in AI for 15 years, which is like a century in AI years. So he's been working in AI long before it was cool. Live from Las Vegas, it's Where We Buy. Applause. You're listening to Where We Buy. It's the show where we talk with retail experts and we visit the places where we buy. My name is James Cook. I research retail and real estate for JLL. And today, we're recording live from the ICSC+PROPTECH stage. Welcome, Choon Lee.
Thank you, James. Thanks for having me.
So, Choon, you are CEO of Abstra Company and Abstra Point. But you've been in AI for 15 years. Did we have AI 15 years ago?
Oh, for sure. AI actually has been around for quite a long time, literally since World War II. And in the beginning, it was really, crude attempts to really make AI work. It was really everything hand-coded. But it went through several stages. In particular, I would say there are two phases in AI. The first phase is up to the beginning, since the late 40s to 2000, I call phase one. And then there was a short, I would say, 5 to 10 year winter of AI where literally nothing happened. And then after 2000, the modern, we call it the modern age of AI began. And then as a result of that, the large language models and everything happened. But literally AI started, I would say, in the even late 30s, late 40s. Although, we in the humanity had fantasies about AI, even to the ancient Greeks. They imagined, furnitures having souls and intelligence, and they can think. And then Leonardo da Vinci, he had visions about, how to create intelligent thinking machines. But the first real substantive attempts of AI happened during the times of famous Alan Turing, where he really made concrete steps in mathematical form. It becomes a science at that point instead of just being science fiction. And so in the beginning, the first phase was literally everything hand coding, programming how intelligence would work. And then after 2000, attempts were made for something called, in terms of learning, in terms of training it, you don't have to hand code it anymore, kind of a thing. So that's really what happened.
So fast forward today, and when we use the term AI, we're often talking about generative AI, and most commonly the large language models that we all use, like Claude and OpenAI. When I've talked to you in the past, you've got an interesting point of view that there's kind of like a sweet spot over how you should really use these generative AI tools. And specifically, we're talking about PropTech, right? So talk me through, what does that sweet spot look like to you?
Okay, so just to make sure we understand, I distinguish personally the applications of AI in literally several different ways. So there are applications in audio, applications in video, image generation. But not only generation, you can do so much more with AI tools. You can do derivative tasks, which is exactly the opposite of generative task, right? Generative AI creates something out of nothing, right? Derivative does exactly the opposite. You give them a document, for example, you want key information extracted out of that. And for me, that's a derivative task, not a generative task. So you can imagine what happens if you use generative tools to do derivative tasks, right?
So just so I understand, a generative tool is like Claude, right?
Correct.
And a derivative task is me asking Claude to derive things from my document. So you're saying it's the wrong tool for the task sometimes?
Correct. When you use a generative tools for derivative tasks, you get results accordingly.
So I've been doing it all wrong, is what I'm hearing from you.
In a way, yes. In a way, yes.
So what's the right way to do it?
Well, you have to build a different model.
Okay.
You have different models that still, in a lot of it's still in research. We made a lot of progress in Abstra and Abstra Point, in that front. But that's one of the reasons you get odd results, right? When you, for example, since we're in the PropTech here, lease abstraction is a good example. LOI summarization, right? That's an inherently derivative task. But if you're using generative tools, right, then it makes stuff up, and you obviously don't want a creation in derivative tasks. So these are some of the fields. There's also analytical areas. Analytical areas like making predictions, right? So Netflix, for example, has an analytical AI engine built in, right? So it tries to guess from the information available what you want to watch next, kind of a thing. So text-based, visual-based AI, but also within the text space, you have generative AI, you have derivative AI, derivative task, and also analytical task. And based on the task type, it's recommended. What we found out in our work, it's recommended to use different AI models for that. Why? Because the accuracy requirement is also very different. Okay. If you're using AI for generative tasks, let's say I'm building a marketing material, accuracy is not that important because I am already in the loop of the creation process. Right? You will never just let AI create a marketing brochure and without reviewing it, send it to the client, right? But if you're abstracting leads, the whole point is that you don't have to do this manually.
So let's get into a case study. So you have a couple of different softwares that your yes. companies do. So you do one that does what, like LOI summarization and that type of thing. Am I saying that you shouldn't use a generative AI model for that?
Yeah, so in those type of derivative tasks, right? Yeah, you have to use generative model much more carefully.
Okay.
You cannot just never ever use it because generative AI has certain capabilities that other tools don't have. But you have to use it much more carefully, right? It's a part of an ingredient, part of the whole package of the AI model you have to build. You cannot just use generative AI models. That's why you get odd results. If you just put in, let's say, a commercial lease, feed it into ChatGPT or Claude or any of the other large language models, you get hallucinations, you get weird results. That's exactly why. Because they were not made natively to be for a derivative task.
Okay, so it's the dreaded hallucination, which I'm very familiar with, and we're still looking to solve it, but it sounds like you solved it. So how do you do that? How do you...
Well, you cannot 100% solve it.
Yeah.
You can, but you can mitigate it. And that's the whole point of using the right models, right? Hallucination, there's a reason why hallucination happens. And this is another thing I'm observing in the discussion. A discussion about AI is not opinion. It's a science, right? It's an engineering problem. It's a mathematical problem. So large language models these days use something called autoregressive model. Autoregressive model means basically they are really, really good at guessing the answers based on the millions and trillions of data points they have. But it's still a guess. It's a good educated guess. And a good way to visualize this is like me guessing, don't tell me, James, but I bet you had something caffeine this morning. Right?
How did you know?
Well, about 90% of Americans drink a caffeine drink in the morning. And just purely based on that statistical model, I'm able to make a very accurate predictions about certain facts. Right? And language, everything what we do as humans has patterns. Like language, like when I say dear something, then the chance of the next word being a name is very, very high. Right? So every human language is a pattern. And based on those patterns, and you have enough data, you can build a gigantic probability map. What's the next probability of the next word to appear? But still, in the end, it's still a probability game. And because it's a probability game, it's still a guess.
And in our world of commercial real estate, not only is it important to be as accurate as you can possibly be, but we all know we run into weird edge cases and unexpected things all the time that would not be predicted by a predictive model. So your software, tell me a little bit more. So you're using other tools that kind of account for that? Tell me how that works.
Yeah, so the way it works is I specialize in derivative tasks. So we do very, very little, if anything, on the generative space. So things like LOI summarization, lease abstraction, offering memorandum abstraction, that kind of thing. So these are all derivative tasks, right? So you have to build a model that is, you have to reduce the generative part. You cannot not use it at all. You have to use it a little bit, but you have to use it very carefully and in the right place, in the right spot, in the right portions, in the right circumstance, and that reduces hallucinations, and that increases the accuracy of the material. So when I started on this 15 years ago, our base model had maybe 60, 70% accuracy. Then ChatGPT was released, or the large language models were released. Then our accuracy increased to about 80%. It still hovers today at between 80 to 90% kind of thing. Now we, with our model, lifted it up from 80 to 90% to about 95, 98%. And that looks very little in terms of number-wise, but it's a world between them. Getting something from 80 to 90% to 95% higher, it took me 3.5 years to get there.
Will generative AI models ever be non-hallucinatory at all?
No.
Can they get why is that?
Because, as I mentioned, because it is based on
Just prediction and
it's a prediction.
Okay.
As I said, autoregressive model is a prediction. It's a prediction of the next word, right? Let's say happy birthday to, right? The chances of the next word being you is so much higher than James or June, right? And based on that probability map, on this complex probability map, you can predict always the next word. It's called autoregressive models. Autoregressive models basically predict always the next word. And the entire way the large language models are built is autoregressive, is prediction, right? The way I'm able to predict accurately you had coffee this morning or some form of caffeine this morning. The way I can predict, happy birthday to, the chances of you being is so much higher than any other word. And based on that, I'm able to build sentences, paragraphs, and everything else around that.
So the software that your company makes, the one is it's like a summarization. I cannot talk today, people. Summarization tool. So that's derivative. And the other one, it doesn't really. Your other tool, talk about that a little bit. Does that even have an AI component to it?
Yeah, it doesn't look like it from the surface. It's a site tracking tool. So basically, for retailers, when they want to grow their business, right? One of the most challenging element is how do you manage and balance and your sites, right? So if a retailer X wants to add, 100 more sites in Los Angeles, for example, you have to manage those 100 sites. And typically you do this in a spreadsheet. But what about a map? What about a communication tool or something? And so the tool that we've built basically is a integrated unified system that integrates map, a spreadsheet, and a communication device, communication platform, all into one single space, all unified, all integrated on steroids, kind of a thing. And on the surface, it doesn't look like AI, but there's a lot of AI working in the background, right? For example, if the user types in a wrong address, it corrects it, right? If the user types in, for example, instead of the user having to type in even an address, maybe he can just forward an email to create a site, right? So in all these little things, there's AI working in the background, and this is also where I believe AI is heading in the future. AI is heading in the future, let's say, more like the way we see with microchips, right? In the beginning, when the microchips came up, when the computers came up, everybody knew, yeah, this is a computer. Today, we have so many devices that we use in our everyday life where we don't even know there's a computer. For example, my washer has a computer. Did I thought about that, putting a computer in a washer? No, not really. Microwave has a computer, a sophisticated computer chip in there. A car is more a computer than a car these days, right? So AI is a little bit like that, heading in the same direction, that AI, really effective AI is really in the background. People don't really know there's AI, but AI is working in the background and making sure the data is correct, accuracy is correct, and is serving to the purpose.
Yeah, I think the moment I bought a washing machine that asked to connect to my Wi-Fi, I felt like, is this a future I want to live in? I wasn't quite sure. Okay, I want to talk about AI in general and what it's going to do to our society. We've started to talk about that. There's this big thing, this idea that now you can use coding tools to basically replace any software coder, and I could vibe code my way to create any prop tech tool out here, ostensibly. So you're an actual CEO of a prop tech company, 2 of them. Is it just you? It's all AI coding?
Yeah, I wish it was. It would make my life so much easier.
But they're telling me you can do that. Why can't you do that?
Well, put it this way. We use vibe coding every day in our company.
Okay.
Not only one, but almost everybody. So you cannot not use it. At the same time, when you use it in the way environment like we do, you quickly begin to understand the power and limitations of vibe coding and using AI for product building. And if the problem set is very cleanly defined and it doesn't have too many difficulties in answering the question, then using AI tools such as vibe coding does wonders. You can do in half an hour what it might have taken you 2-3 days in the past. It's an incredible tool. However, if the problem set becomes much more complex, you don't really fully understand the requirements yet. And very often when we solve problems, we don't fully understand what's going on, what's going to happen, what is the right question to ask, kind of a thing. AI quickly falls apart, at least at this moment. So that means you can use AI for I call single-dimensional tasks. I call them also intern tasks. So if I ask somebody, research me all middle schools in Las Vegas, right? Yeah, there's no inherent limitations in finding an answer to that question. But if I say, for example, I'm trying to build a dialog screen with 20 input fields, but the dialog screen cannot be complicated. It needs to be easy to use. That's not easy to do, right? Even for a human to think about 20 input fields, how do I design something that is not complex? That requires a lot of in-depth thinking, out-of-the-box thinking, creative thinking, thinking maybe other models and other ideas from other fields. That's where AI quickly falls apart. So that is really the limitation of it. I call them adverse multidimensional problems. Problems that you cannot just straightforward find an answer to by doing a Google search, for example, right? That requires AI will try, if I put basically, I have a question to ask and I have 10 requirements, 10 boundary conditions, it will take into account two or three, ignores the rest. So it becomes useless kind of a thing. So that is really the environment where AI tools are, not only in coding, but almost in every field. And so the irony is, in order for you to be able to use those AI tools, you have to be a subject matter expert.
Right.
Because you need to know whatever the AI is spitting out to you is useful or not, and how you have to modify the answer to make it useful.
In my work as a researcher, a lot of times I'll write a very long report, and we'll spend, my team could spend a month on this report,
Sure.
right? Then I can plug that same question into Claude or ChatGPT, and it will produce a report of similar length to an outsider, to someone who's not a subject matter expert. They'll be indistinguishable. But if they were to follow that report, they'd be missing all of the nuance and all of the specialty that my team knows about. And what scares me, Choon, is that most people won't know the difference because there aren't that many experts in what I do. And people are going to assume they're equal. I guess that means in a future where AI is doing everything, we're going to need more specialists who can distinguish what's really good, more subject matter experts.
You're 100% correct.
Okay.
In the one sense, and this is the duality of what AI is doing at this moment, AI in the one sense is taking people's jobs away, the junior people, the intern task, right? So people on the intern level perhaps, right? A lot of the tasks, if not already, are replaced very often now with AI. At the same time, the demand for people who really know the stuff and know not only how to evaluate and assess the results that AI spits out, but also how to modify it to make it useful. That demand is going to definitely increase. So it is, I don't subscribe to the idea that AI is going to kill all jobs in the world. It's quite the opposite. It depends on what type of profession, what kind of activity you're talking about. And in that case, the demand of that will be higher than even today.
Hooray for subject matter experts. I love it.
Correct.
Okay. I want to ask you about agents because I have my AI expert here. So I've been hearing that AI agents are going to book my travel for me. They're going to go shopping for me. I did one test, and I asked I had Claude hooked up to like all my scheduling and my Outlook, and I asked it to book some meetings for me, and it sent out meeting invites to all the wrong people at the wrong times, and I'm like, I'm taking that control back, right? So that is my one experience with agents. I probably was doing it wrong, so I'm not a good... Because AI can still hallucinate, does that mean that we shouldn't be trusting it with the agency to control our lives? What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody's talking about agents like this is a new thing, but agents has been around for a long time.
Okay.
In fact, if you think about it, every robot is an agent, if you think about it, right?
Like my Roomba that
Every
vacuums?
robot, like even in manufacturing, every robot by definition is actually an agent in a way. So I would say the key in AI, in the age of AI that we're living, is not only just deploying it, but knowing where to deploy what technology, to what degree. And that often has to do with what we talked before, accuracy requirement. So for example, in creative tasks, let's say if I'm a marketing expert and I'm trying to use AI for tasks to help me put a marketing copy together or marketing brochure together, right? The accuracy requirement for those kind of tasks is far lower than, let's say, if I'm using an AI tool to book appointments with a very important client, right? The accuracy, that better be 100%, very, very close. You don't want to send meeting invites to the wrong person kind of a thing. So I guess this is really what AI, the new age of AI has changed. In the traditional software field, in the world that we used to live before in PropTech, every software was literally working 100%. That might be different in terms of branding, usability, preferred functionality, features. Now, in the age of AI, you have not only those components to consider, you also have to consider, well, what is performing better in terms of accuracy? And there, we don't have the full answer yet. Some will do well, some people don't. It's also a matter of personally judging it, personally trying out where it performs better or not. But one thing that we cannot forget is AI is a probabilistic technology. That's very, very important to understand that. So what I distinguish AI bringing a paradigm shift in 3 different areas. So in PropTech, in traditional PropTech, since we're talking about PropTech, everything works like a light switch. Turn on, turn off, turn on, turn off. It's binary system. There is no probability if I turn on a light switch, it may or may not turn on. Not in the age of AI. In the age of AI, if I turn on, it may only work 90% with a 90% accuracy.
I don't think I want that.
Well, for some it is useful, correct. But in others, you want, let's say, a car that works 90%? I don't think so, right? Would you buy a computer, pay $2,000 on a computer that works 92%? I don't think so, right? So you have to distinguish. So the question, we never had to question, okay, where am I using what technology? We just bought a car. We naturally assume that works near 100%. And that paradigm is broken. That is not true anymore. And the second one is also different in the modern age of AI we will live is, let's say I buy a phone. Okay. And if I turn the phone on today, right, I can be guaranteed it's going to work the same tomorrow. Guaranteed next year, 10 years, it doesn't matter. Not AI. In AI, I give a question to a question, feed in a question, and it may give one answer today, and 10 minutes later, it may give another answer. So the time constancy is not there anymore. You get different results based on when you ask the question. Why? Because it's probabilistic. It's guessing the answer, right, as best as it can. And based on tiny differences, based on many other factors, it can give different answers, right? And that's number 2. Number 3 is, if I have a device, and the device is broken, right? Let's say a car, a phone, whatever it is, there is always an expert somewhere in the world who can fix it for me. Not in AI, because it's probabilistic. We call this the black box. There's calculations in order to fix a hallucination. One hallucination can take an engineer 100 years. So it is not fixable, hallucination. It is part of the design. Until we come up with a new AI technology that we don't know of yet that can kind of address that, we are stuck with a technology that is probabilistic. Now, to clarify, probabilistic doesn't mean the subject I'm trying to solve is probabilistic. I can use technology today to predict the weather or to forecast stocks or something, right? So that's probabilistic field. But if I'm trying to solve the weather forecasting problem, I'm not using necessarily a computer that only turns on 90% of the time, right? So there's an important distinction. But now we are facing a situation in PropTech and elsewhere where we have technology that only may work 90% of the time. And that's a whole different ball game that we're playing that we have never faced before. It's a whole new paradigm, no new way to build and adopt technology that we, in our humanity, never had faced before. And at the same time, we can ignore AI because it has so much power and so much capabilities. So we're in a really strange situation at this moment where we speak.
I mean, for me, the theme of this whole conversation is trust.
Yes.
Like, I work with somebody for years. I trust them to do the right thing in their job 99% of the time. When it sounds like that trust for a generative AI model, it may not be warranted anytime soon. And so you've got to have all these non-generative AI structures around
Correct.
it to make sure
Correct.
that whatever comes out is pretty trustworthy.
Correct.
Okay. And folks, are folks managing to do that? Like, have figured that out?
I think we are all struggling quite a bit. I mean, you really touch upon the keyword, which is trust, right? And every technology for us to be able to adopt it, consciously or not, requires a level of trust. For example, you are not afraid to step into an airplane when you fly back, right? But the chances of an airplane crashing is about 1 to 10 million. That's why we can confidently trust the technology to adopt it and then use it. But AI at this moment is not 100% or 1 out of 10 million, right? The chances of AI giving wrong answers is far, far higher than 1 out of 0.00001%, which is the case with airplanes. The chance of you getting in a car accident is probably 1 out of 100, 1 out of 1,000 in that range. So that's why we feel comfortable stepping into a car. But till that time is given, we cannot just blindly adopt it. We have to really think about how does the AI, to what degree, what level of accuracy are the results produced by this AI model, whatever you're building, and can you adopt it? And that's why we are hesitant sometimes to use an AI agent for making scheduling a meeting, because we know that the data reliability is not at the 99.999 percentile. It's far, far less than that.
For me, it's a little bit like a slot machine where every time you pull the handle, you get a different result. Like, I'll use the exact same prompts for certain tasks, and I'll get different outputs.
100%. And that's what I was mentioning before with the second paradigm shift, right? Where the constancy of the answer is different, right? Depending on what time you are asking the question, you may get different answers on that. And that has really to do with, as I said, because LLMs today, at this moment, are inherently probabilistic, right? Generative AI is probabilistic. For that reason, you have to be much, much careful how to adopt, how to use AI, large language models, and generative AI for those type of tasks.
So given everything we've talked about, what's your prediction in the next, say, 5 or 10 years? How much will all of this new technology impact our space, the prop tech, commercial real estate, for me, shopping center space?
Yeah, I think we're going to go right now. We all have drunk the AI Kool-Aid, so everybody is like just fascinated by AI. That will wear off at some point, and then people will say, okay, where can we, in what processes, specific processes, does it make sense, and does AI produce the right results so I can adopt it, and which way, with what boundary conditions? We really haven't really made that conversation yet. We're in the middle of it, I would say, in the prop tech space. But we just began to have that conversation. But I think we will be much more careful in adopting. We will adopt AI. It's coming, no question about that. And I have nothing against large language models. We use them every day. But again, we need to know where and how to use those AI tools. And that is the process that we haven't really gone through yet, that will happen in the near future with AI.
That's perfect. Yeah. That absolutely wraps it up. We're over on time, but I think I can get away with this. I want to ask you one fun question. Right when we sat down, you told me that you once rode a bicycle from LA to Las Vegas. How did that happen? Why? That's crazy. Why? Everybody in the audience is like, what are you talking about? What convinced you that that was a good idea?
I don't know. At that time, it felt like, why not? As we do it because it's somebody said about a mountain climber, why did you climb the mountain? And the mountaineer's answer was because it's there.
How many miles is that?
It's 366 miles in 3 days.
In 3 days, and you can't go on a highway, so you're
Correct.
not taking the direct route.
Correct.
How did you? It's like all back roads through the Mojave Desert, right?
Mojave Desert, correct. With a bike that's about 50 pounds heavy,
Carrying all your food and water with
food
you.
and water and everything,
Would you ever do it again?
Oh, absolutely.
You would do it again.
Of course.
You told me how difficult it was. Oh my gosh. Next year for this conference, you and I, no, I'm kidding. I'm never going to do that.
You should join me, but it makes it easier. It's cheating in a way a little bit. Right?
All right. Yes. Oh, yeah, to do it on your own. Okay. Well, Choon, the fact that you would do that and ride a bike from LA to Las Vegas means you're willing to do almost anything. So Choon Lee, CEO and founder of Abstra Company and Abstra Point, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks so much, James. Appreciate it.
And if you want to hear more interviews and retail insights, you can subscribe to Where We Buy on the iPhone podcast app. We're on Spotify. Wherever you get your podcast, just search for Where We Buy. And you can find us on the web at wherewebuy.show. And that's a wrap. Applause. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. This has been fantastic.